Good morning, grade 5. Today's lesson is on active and passive voices. You had done something called present and past participles. Those are forms of verbs, and it is very easy because present participles always end with ing, and past participles they end with ed, t or en. Now, for example, cried or en is beaten, okay, or eaten, and ending with t like burnt, okay. So those are past participles. Present participles end with ing, and past participles end with ed, en or t. Now, this is what we are going to do today. It's called active and passive voices. And for example, in these sentences, the action is done to someone or something by someone. So, you know, in an active voice, you have a subject. A subject is the person. So, for example, if I say, Mary gave it a toy, and Mary gave it a toy. So who's the doer? Mary. Mary is the subject. Who is the doer? Mary. Mary is the subject. Gave it a toy. So the toy is the one who's getting the toy. So if I say the toy was given to it by Mary, that becomes a passive sentence. The first sentence is Mary gave it a toy. That is an active voice. Okay. So let's look at this. George cleaned the shoes. So that is active. Okay. Now it says, in other words, change these passive sentences into active ones. So the first one is done. The shoes were cleaned by George. Okay. So that is a passive sentence. A passive sentence will almost always use the word by, sometimes with. So the shoes were cleaned by George, that is passive. If I want to say it as an active sentence, then I say George cleaned the shoes. The door was answered by Mrs. Lewis. Okay, so that is a passive sentence. And now to make it an active, Mrs. Lewis answered the door. Okay, so who's the one who's doing the action? George. Who's the one doing the action over here? Mrs. Lewis. So these are the doers, and doers are the subject. Okay. So here it says the ladder was removed by the caretaker. So who's doing the action? The caretaker. He's the doer. So when for an active voice, the doer comes first. So you say the caretaker removed the ladder. It's easy to remember passive sentence because passive sentence almost always have by. Alright. Then poems are written by poets. So poets write poems. That's the active. That is the answer. The new shelves were put up by Mr. Wood, the carpenter. So when you change it into active, Mr. Wood, the carpenter, put up the new shelves. Okay, till 1 to 5 it was really very easy, wasn't it? Now look at this. The carpet was unrolled by who? We don't know. So you say by someone. Okay, the carpet was unrolled by someone. Okay, because the name is not given. Who unrolled? So then to change it into a passive, this active, to change it into a passive, we say someone unrolled the carpet. The 7, the money was stolen by who? Someone. So someone stole the money. 2 plates have been broken. Who? We don't know. So someone broke the plates. The telephone was answered by, we don't know. So who? By someone. Someone answered the telephone. All the firemen were summoned. Summoned means called. Summoned means called. All the firemen were summoned or called to their post. So someone summoned all the firemen to their post. Someone summoned means called all the firemen to their posts. Okay, now we are going to do something. Okay, in these sentences, someone does the action. Let us assume, however, that we do not need to know who does the action. All we need to know is that it is done. Rewrite the sentences in the passive without mentioning the doer. So now these are all active sentences and you have to write it in passive without mentioning the doer. For example, the first one, a man wrote down the details in a book. If I wanted to change it into a passive sentence, I would say the details were written in a book by a man. Okay, the details were written down in a book by a man. That is your passive, by a man. But here they're saying rewrite sentences in the passive without mentioning the doer. So you don't have to say who's doing it. So when you say the details were written down in a book, you don't have to say by a man. The second one, men made this bread at the new bakery. So you don't have to say who did it. It was actually this bread was made at the new bakery by men. But you don't have to say, the question says, don't say without mentioning the doer. So you say, this bread was made at the new bakery. Don't say by who. Someone switched on lights all over the building. So don't say who did it. So you just have to say, the lights were switched on all over the building. The lights were switched on all over the building. Don't have to say who did it. Actually, the roundsmen deliver the milk punctually every morning. So you don't have to say who delivered. So the milk was delivered punctually every morning. The waiter served delicious soup. You don't say who's doing it. Otherwise, you would say passive sentence. You would say a delicious soup was served by the waiter. But you can just say a delicious soup was served. Okay. Someone connected the hose to the hydrant. So without the naming who did it, you just say the hose was connected to the hydrant. They will extend the ladder to its limit. The ladder was extended. They will extend. So the ladder will be extended to its limit. The ladder will be extended to its limit. If you wanted to change it into a passive sentence by mentioning the doer, you would say they will extend, the ladder will be extended to its limit by them. Okay, but here in the question it says, do not mention the doer. Men often use a concrete mixer to do this job. A concrete mixer is often used to do this job. If you had to write it in passive sentence, by men, but here you don't put by men. The film showed the Navy in action. The Navy in action was shown. Okay. First we allow the ink to dry on the many sheets of paper. The ink is first allowed to dry on the many sheets of paper. So this is how you use your active and passive voice. Usually we use active voices because it is clearer to understand. But sometimes in formal writing you use passive voices. So I will be giving you extra exercises on this, but do this also. Thank you.